100 kills, 44 minutes, and buried inside this brutally violent Marvel special are Easter eggs, hidden references, a VFX mistake so bad it might actually get patched, and a final scene that completely redefines what the Punisher symbol means. Most people watched this and saw an action special, but if you slow it down, frame by frame, there's an entirely different story hidden underneath the blood and bullets. And by the end of this video, you're going to see this special in a way you never have before. Stay until the end, because the final detail changes everything. The special opens with Danzig's mother blasting over the speakers, and this isn't just a cool music choice, it's loaded with meaning. The song was originally released in 1988, then remixed in 1993 as a direct challenge to parental advisory warning labels. Glenn Danzig was essentially saying, don't try to shield your children from reality, and that theme connects directly to this entire story. The opening lyric, "Mother, tell your children not to walk my way," is Frank Castle's unspoken warning to Manucci. Her sons walked his way, and now they're all dead. The overprotection of those sons is what destroyed them. The first shot gives us Frank's research wall. Police records, fingerprints, invoices, maps, everything he used to hunt his enemies. Every target already has a red X through it. The Nucci family is done. But then we see Frank doing pull-ups shirtless, blood dripping from his hands, and the imagery is unmistakably deliberate. Arms out, body vertical, blood falling. This is Christ on the cross. Frank is a practicing Catholic. He's not just working out, he's punishing himself.
Here's a detail almost nobody caught. Frank does exactly 41 pull-ups before he collapses. He stops one short of 42, the number famously described in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy as the answer to life, the universe, and everything. Frank has no answers. He killed every person responsible for his family's death, and it gave him nothing. No peace, no closure, just silence and pain. After he falls, Frank pops painkillers, drinks bourbon, and immediately vomits into a bucket he already had positioned nearby. He knew this was coming. This is routine. This is rock bottom. And that Danzig song that opened the special with such confidence, it distorts into something unhinged and spiraling. That's Frank Castle's mental state, translated directly into audio. To understand where Frank is right now, you need to know how he got here. Jon Bernthal's Punisher first appeared in Daredevil Season 2 in 2016, clashing with Matt Murdock over the question of lethal force. He went to prison, survived a riot orchestrated by Wilson Fisk, got broken out to eliminate Fisk's rivals. Then came 2 seasons of his own series, revealing the full origin. Frank was a Marine in a classified Black Ops team called Cerberus Squad. After leaving that operation, his wife Maria, his son Frank Jr., and his daughter Lisa were killed in what appeared to be caught crossfire between criminal gangs in Central Park, but was actually an orchestrated hit by his own former commanding officers. Frank spent 2 seasons getting revenge, culminating in the killing of Billy Russo, his former best friend turned villain known as Jigsaw.
By the end of his series, Frank had fully committed to the skull symbol and continued his war on New York's criminal world. His reappearance in Daredevil Born Again Season 1 showed him still haunted by a voice, his dead son's voice, whispering, "Get him, Daddy." Every single one of them. That line explains everything. Frank cannot stop, because stopping feels like betraying his son's memory. After Frank escapes custody, he ends up in a neighborhood called Little Sicily, a fictional rename, likely to avoid commentary on any real New York community. And the chaos here is entirely Frank's doing. He killed the Nucci crime family, who had maintained control of this neighborhood through fear and corruption. With them gone, there's nothing left. The street interviews in the news footage are chilling in how honest they are. Residents say things were actually calmer under the Nuccis, that at least there was order. Frank killed the villains. He just didn't plan for the aftermath. This is the show's most honest critique of vigilante justice. The Nuccis were brutal and corrupt, but they filled a vacuum that nothing legitimate has stepped in to replace. Frank's war created a new battlefield, and innocent people are living in it. Back in Frank's apartment, he recites the Marine Recon Creed. And as he does, the ghosts of other Marines appear around him. This is one of the most accurate and unflinching portrayals of combat PTSD you'll see in a superhero property. Trauma doesn't just haunt you, it inhabits you. You can't revisit the memory without emotionally reliving everything around it.
One of these Marines is Curtis Hoyle, a character from the Netflix Punisher series, a former Navy SARC who ran veteran counseling sessions and ultimately turned his back on Frank when Frank chose to execute Billy Russo instead of letting justice run its course. So here is Frank, being judged by someone who genuinely tried to help him and gave up. He's sitting on an overturned bucket, the same puke bucket from the opening scene. He got rid of every piece of furniture in this apartment except the object that represents his lowest moment. The other two Marines in the sequence are played by actual former Marines, which gives these scenes a weight and authenticity that you can feel, even if you can't identify why. Frank cuts his dog tag necklace, then takes a knife and carves a red X into the Marine Corps tattoo on his chest, the same red X he drew through every name on his wall. He's marking himself as the final target. The mission is over. He's done. He zips up all his weapons, locks the bag, and hides it in a wall safe behind a Marine Corps flag. Then he walks outside, blood seeping through his hoodie in the rough shape of an X. It's a striking visual, and it sets up everything that follows. Frank's retirement lasts about 40 minutes of screen time before the neighborhood tears it apart. This detail is pure screenwriting craft. Early in the special, we visit Dre's donut shop, where Dre asks his employee, frustrated, "Where's my blue pen? Why is it not in the basket?" His employee points out it's behind his ear. It's a throwaway moment. You laugh and move on. Remember that pen, because in the final fight sequence inside that same donut shop, Frank kills the largest, most physically imposing assassin of the entire special with that exact pen, repeatedly. The force required to turn a standard ballpoint pen into a lethal weapon that many consecutive times is, let's be honest, biologically implausible. But it's also completely, perfectly Punisher. Frank Castle will weaponize whatever is within arm's reach, and the show set that up in the most understated way possible. The cemetery scene is the emotional center of the entire special. Frank visits his family's graves, headstones for Francis David, Lisa Barbara, and Maria Elizabeth Castle. He places a Swiss Army knife by Lisa's grave. He sets the key to his gun safe next to a shot glass by Maria's stone, a glass from the Burren Club, the bar where Frank got revenge on the Kitchen Irish back in Daredevil Season 2. He's returning to origins, tying up loose ends in his own mind. Then Frank talks to Lisa. He remembers tickling her arm with 3 strokes to help her sleep. He remembers her whispering the bedtime rhyme, 1 batch, 2 batch, penny and dime. This is the origin of the phrase Frank has said before killing enemies throughout his entire story. It was from his daughter's favorite book. He weaponized a children's rhyme into a death sentence, and we finally understand why. But the memories turn violent. The merry-go-round, the blood, the day his family died. And that's when Mon Nucci appears, wheelchair-bound, played with brilliant menace by Judith Light. Her physical state is a reference to the comics, where Mon Nucci loses all 4 limbs. Here, she's in a wheelchair, diminished, but absolutely not finished. She's placed a bounty on Frank's head. At 6:47, every killer in the neighborhood is coming for him. Among Frank's hallucinations, Karen Page appears, wearing a Marine Corps hoodie, an echo of what Maria Castle used to wear. Frank is hallucinating people both dead and alive, people who shaped him. But Karen's dialogue is unusual. She speaks like someone who knew Frank during his deployment years, referencing things she wouldn't actually know. This isn't accurate memory. It's PTSD mixing timelines, with Karen serving as the emotional anchor Frank needs in this moment. When Frank asks, "Are you here, Karen? Are you with me?" she answers, "I'm always here, but there's still more for you to do." His dead son kept pushing him to kill, But this hallucination of someone still alive, someone who represents the world outside his grief, gives Frank something different. Permission to continue, not out of revenge, but out of purpose. It's a small distinction that matters enormously. The action throughout this special is genuinely exceptional, and one specific choice elevates it above standard Marvel combat. Frank tracks his ammunition. He reloads between every magazine. He picks up weapons from fallen enemies when he runs dry. He frequently and visibly runs out of rounds mid-fight. This is something most action films ignore entirely, but it was popularized at the highest level by John Wick. When a character has to manage ammunition, the fight becomes a resource puzzle rather than a fantasy. Every reload is a decision. Every dropped weapon is an opportunity. It makes the violence feel grounded in a way that pure cinematic spectacle never can.
The creativity of the kills is also worth noting. Frank uses one man's axe to eliminate a second man, then repositions that second man so he falls onto his own axe. Brutal, efficient, and completely logical in the chaos of the moment. You believe this man has been trained to turn any environment into a killing ground. On the rooftop, the stunt work is largely impressive, but there is one slow-motion hero shot that is genuinely unfinished. The VFX in that specific moment looks like a rough preview cut that was accidentally left in the final version. For a shot they clearly intended as a visual centerpiece, the incomplete work is jarring. It's one of those moments where you almost wonder if you're seeing a different version of the file than everyone else. Also on the rooftop, in the background of the chaos below, there is a man holding up an amplifier with pure joy on his face. The neighborhood is on fire, people are being hunted, corpses are accumulating, and this man found an amp and is absolutely thrilled about it. Little Sicily is a deeply unusual place. When Frank hears screaming from Dre's donut shop, something shifts. The audio design here is subtle but devastating. It's Charlie's voice, but it's mixed with Lisa's voice. His dead daughter and this living child become one sound in his mind. Frank lets Minucci escape. He stops pursuing his primary target. He goes to save Dre's family instead. After Frank clears the donut shop, killing one. Here is the number that changes how you watch this entire special. After over an hour of painstaking review, counting every kill, including the Nucci's shown in flashback, including the man thrown at Frank on the scaffolding that Frank chose not to catch, the total is exactly 100. Frank Castle kills exactly 100 people in The Punisher: One Last Kill. That is not an accident. 100 is the symbolic weight of this story. Frank didn't title this mission in his head. The show did it for him. 100 people. One last kill that was never going to be his own. And the final kill, Mickey, executed for killing Johnny's dog Cameo, is number 100. For a dog. That's Frank Castle's moral compass in one moment. 100 assassins get bullets, and the last one gets a knife for a dog. When Frank returns Johnny's Marine hat and faces Mickey one final time, notice the skull emblem on Frank's chest. It looks freshly repainted, clean, sharp. Throughout Daredevil: Born Again, we saw corrupt AVTF cops co-opting that symbol, turning it into something hateful, something that represented the abuse of power rather than justice. Frank is reclaiming what it means. He decides what that skull stands for, not them. He also has a fresh haircut and a trimmed beard in this closing sequence. It's a small detail, but it signals something real. Frank is not at rock bottom anymore. He found his reason to stay. He has a purpose again, even if that purpose is an endless war. Throughout this special, a pattern emerges clearly. Frank Castle is drawn toward protecting daughter figures. His own Lisa, Charlie in the donut shop. His hallucinations are anchored by the ghost of his daughter's voice. This is not subtle, and it's almost certainly intentional setup for whatever comes next for this character in the MCU. Beyond that, any specific connections to upcoming Marvel projects are speculation at this point, the kind of fun theorizing the internet exists to do. But structurally, A Frank Castle who has rediscovered his protective instincts, who has chosen to live, and who has just killed 100 people in one night is a character ready for something larger. What that looks like is anyone's guess. At Lisa's grave, Frank finally completes the rhyme. He says it fully, out loud, for her. 1 batch, 2 batch, penny and dime. Papa Bear's a baker. So am I. I love you, baby girl. To the end of time.
He places her paper flower on the grave. He tells her ghost he felt her with him today. And for the first time in this entire special, Frank Castle doesn't look like a man waiting to die. He looks like a man who has made peace with being alive. That's the real story this special was telling. Not a kill count, not Easter eggs. A man who tried to die, couldn't do it, and found in saving one little girl a reason to keep going. The Punisher survives because the world keeps making him necessary. And as long as there are Mickeys throwing dogs into traffic and Monucci's putting bounties on veterans, Frank Castle will keep answering. What did you think of this special? Did you spot the 100 kill count? Drop your take in the comments and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next breakdown.